Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Marcus here again. I've spoken to you on the subject matter on several occasions that the church, the American Christians, are on the path to hell. Now, I say these things to you because I've been given this message to say to you. Many of you don't want to hear it, and many of you might change your channel. But you've heard it said that whom God has called, he has qualified. And so I've been called and qualified to give you the message that you're on the path to hell, the church as well as the Christian community. Now, let me show you what has happened. You've heard the story of the burning bush. Many of you believe it, others of you don't. You found some way to explain what it was all about. But I'm going to tell you my type of burning bush. And when I say my type of burning bush, what was that burning bush supposed to do to Moses? It took Moses to a place to experience something he had never experienced before, solidifying the fact that there was a power bigger than Egypt, bigger than the Pharaoh, bigger than man. My burning bush was not a bush burning, but it was me finding myself in a position where, had it not been a revelation, an exposure of a power bigger than life itself, I would not know the truth. As a boy, I found myself learning how to swim in a mud hole. Water around your knees, you try to learn how to dog paddle. And this was around the edge of a lake where the big guys who knew how to swim would always take inner tubes and they'd go out in the middle of the water. Some would just swim out there. And youngsters, you know how youngsters are, they always want to do what the big boys do. And I wanted to go out there so bad. Never ever stroking like swimming. Never ever even being out there on the inner tube because there was fear. Somebody might snatch you off. But I still wanted to go. So I made a plan one day to do a practice run. I was going to go swimming after school before the big boys came out swimming. And if anybody would be there, it would be the youngsters who were dog paddling in the mud hole. So I went out there this particular day. No big guys were out there, nobody on inner tubes. And I told myself, it's time to swim across that lake. Not just out in the middle, but across it. I might not be able to make it back, but I could go to the end and travel back across the bridge and come back around. And so I made that choice. And on this particular day, I decided to swim across the lake. Well, I'd never done any stroking, so I did some dog paddling to get out of that low water into deeper waters. And when I got out into the deeper waters, I started doing a few strokes. I guess I got about a third of the distance across that lake. Maybe even a quarter of the distance. And I looked up the lake and I looked down the lake. In one of those directions, I saw a tree trunk standing up out of the water. And on that tree trunk was a watermouth moccasin. At that time, I'm really not afraid of snakes, especially the ones that I see first. But I never imagined myself being in the water with a moccasin. That never crossed my mind. And it scared me panic till I screamed. And when I screamed, the snake turned his head and looked my direction and then dropped into the water. So I turned around and I started trying to get back to that shore as quick as I possibly could. But as I noticed, I was only splashing water and it didn't look like I was moving at all. And so I thought, something got to give. And I just want to say to you, it seems like in a matter of no time, I reached from where I was to the bank. And I climbed up out of that bank just in time to see that snake pull up right behind me. Now this snake went over in an area where the water was so shallow that he could curve up and his head be sticking out of the water, staring at me. Now, you know, when we went to the mud hole, we basically went swimming naked. So I grabbed my clothes and started running up the hill to get away from this lake. In fact, I never been to that lake to swim again. Now, what happened, what I got out of that, I didn't see it right at that moment. It took me a little bit of time. That I was about to kill myself, acting a fool, just like youngsters do who think they know everything. But there was a power that recognized the situation, the danger that I was in, and somehow used that snake to chase me out of that water so I could survive. That worked for a while. As I grew older, thoughts started entering my mind that said maybe I had mind over matter. That because of that, I was really able to swim across that lake. I was just interfered with by that snake. And that snake also showed me that I could really swim across that lake by swimming back to my original starting place so fast that I outswim the snake. That started saying, okay, you can put your mind on certain things and believe it, and you can achieve it. You know that how that things go. But then, ladies and gentlemen, I would have accepted that. Except that a few years later, still a young boy, I was in the cotton fields of Mississippi. Cotton was kind of tall, and what we were doing, we were cutting out grass between the cotton stalks and thinning the cotton out so it could breathe and grow, and you could be maximized as far as the cotton that it produces. So one of those hot days, so I'm walking straddle a row where the cotton actually comes up between your legs tall enough, and you just, as you walk, you probably push over stalks, leaning them over, not pushing them over till they fall, but just leaning them over, as I chopped and worked the row across from me. And on this particular day, at this particular time, there was a fear that came over me that I could not move. I froze. Not knowing why. I just couldn't move. So I stood there, hair standing up on the back of my neck, not knowing what to do. Stood there for moments. And having done that, the fear began to subside. And I said to myself, I wonder what that was. And I began to proceed as I was doing. As I took my working tool called a hoe and started to move it to cut some more grass, something by the power outside of me snatched that hoe out of my hand, physically turned me around, and physically started me running in the opposite direction and screaming. I didn't know why. I was just doing it. And others saw me, they would holler, Eddie, Eddie, what are you running for? What's wrong? What's wrong? And all I could say was, I don't know. But I reached a certain distance that I felt comfortable. My fears were kind of reduced. And I stopped. Now I'm curious, what in the world was that? So naturally I began to investigate. I started going back to where I was, slowly looking, trying to see if I saw some dangers, because the fear told me it was some danger. So I got to where my hoe was. I picked it up. Then I started looking on the road that I was standing on, walking straddle. Right where I was standing, ladies and gentlemen, my next move, my next step would have put me right in a position where there was a great big cottonmouth moccasin. The other one was a water moccasin. This was a cottonmouth moccasin that I would have had right between my legs. Now the thought that that snake could have bit me between my legs on my balls, you know, that was just devastating. Then when you have to take that, just to look there and bite me anywhere, I'd have fainted. But what I recognized, ladies and gentlemen, is that there was a power, whether it was outside of me or inside of me, that recognized this danger, that took control of me, stopped me, snatched this hoe out of my hand, turned me around, send me running and screaming, and then come back and and find that there was this danger right there. Now, I could have told myself mind over matter about the other one in the lake. I didn't have no mind over matter about this. I had no idea what was happening. Nor did anybody else out there in that field have any idea what my dangers were. But there was a power somewhere that recognized that and was able to maneuver me in the proper way to get away from that danger. And by so doing, I recognized this as a power that not only was able to do this, but it cared about me enough to stop it from happening. I know there are a lot of people who that danger would have just overcome. But for me, it's protected me. And by doing that, I understood that I was loved. I was loved. And as time grew, I also understood that I had a responsibility. When I think of the number of people who were not saved, who were not protected, by me being protected, I had a responsibility to the power that was able to maneuver me, the power that was able to reveal itself to me, even though I couldn't see it. I recognized it. And so I had a duty to do what that power would want done to others as that power had served me. I didn't start at that time. It took me some time to come to that. But ladies and gentlemen, over in time, as a man who had come through life as most young people do, who have gone to church and heard all the stories, had read all the Bible stories, had seen all the people jumping and shouting and fainting and acting like that on a Sunday and acting like all whatever they wanted to act the other 6 days of the week. I was blessed enough to hear of a man during my lifetime, my young lifetime, by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A man who talked that talk about God and Jesus and love and justice, but didn't just talk it, but walked it. And I was able to see how you put the two together, talking and walking. And I saw many things happen. I saw people willing to give their lives up, people who were killed because they stood up for what they recognized as being truth. Now, I saw that as being God serving. I hadn't seen that before. Never seen that before. Heard all kind of talking, but never seen that. People standing up, people who were willing to allow themselves to be bombed, people who were willing to even watch their own die, but would still keep on going forward for change that was better than the hell they were in. And so having reached a certain point in my life, I started seeing stuff that I knew that the power that had served me with love wanted some love to be shared out there in the middle of this darkness. So I decided to make a change. I decided to make a change. You hear what I said? I decided. Wasn't just made to do this change. I decided to make a change because of what I understood as truth, what I understood as love, what I understood as what's needed to be done. That needed to be changed. Real change. Change from the way human beings thought, the way they think in America. So I decided to stop working. I had a pretty nice job at the time. I worked as a counselor for the Veterans Administration. I'd done a lot of things before then, but this was what you call a real job, prestigious job. You wore a suit and tie to work every day. You looked good. You moonlight doing some entertainment, put extra money in your pocket so you can say you are somebody. You dress good with your three-piece suits. You got a bank account. You got money in your pocket. You're doing good. But there were so many people around me who were not doing good. And I saw the voice of God crying out to give a message to these people, to liberate them from their bondage and their suffering. So I accepted that challenge. It wasn't easy because things happen strange when you change. First of all, my loving, wonderful wife decided that she didn't want anything to do with me. The other guy, she was crazy about. The one who wanted to conquer the world. She was crazy about him. But now I'm talking about saving the world. Nah, she dumped me like a hot potato. It hurt at the time. But I don't blame her now. Because I've learned what it's all about. At that time, I really had nothing to do per se. And so I decided to join the military that I don't even believe in. But in Iran, they had taken hostages. And I thought that there might have been a war. And so I volunteered for the United States Navy to go over in that area in the Persian Gulf. So if the war break out, that if anybody got killed, maybe I would get killed. Now, why was I saying get killed? Because it seemed as if the lady that said she loved me and would always love me was upset because the money wouldn't be coming in. And just to show her how much I loved her, I wanted to take a chance on being killed in the military so she can get that check. That last check, the check of my life, to show her how much I loved her. But there was a power somewhere that wasn't their plan. So there was no war. And so I got a chance to travel across the country, across the world, to places I would never have probably gotten had it not been for that choice. I got a chance to see a lot of things. I got a chance to see the beauty of the world that we had been denied. I got a chance to see suffering, pain and suffering that was much greater than the pain and suffering that some Americans were going through at that time. I got a chance to grow up. So, eventually, I left the Navy. I left because the president, just like Donald Trump, was a representative of the 1%ers, not the poor. In fact, they were taking advantage of the poor. They were doing all kinds of things, as all presidents do of this country, and all leaders of all countries do. And I recognized it, and I refused to follow those orders, and I accepted. And other than separation, I tried to get an dishonorable, but I didn't think of anything that I wanted to do that was dishonorable, so I decided just not to follow orders. And so they released me from the Navy with an other than honorable separation. I didn't want any benefits that come from the Navy. Don't try to trap me talking about the benefits I can get, education, housing, insurance, business. I don't want that because I found out what you represented. And so I came out of the Navy. Now, being out of the Navy, my call still had not been put in place. But I learned all kinds of things. I eventually met another lady. I fell in love with her. She fell in love with me. And we got married. And I came to Minnesota. But not with the prospect of trying to find a job, not trying to get back into the system, not trying to get back into this way of life where I could say I made it and I'm all of this and I'm all of that and sorry for you. No, I had a mission. I didn't know exactly what that mission was, but I was being led. I was being directed. And I came up with a program called Life of Victory Eternal. It's a radio ministry. I started trying to share talk, as it were, to the public. I talked to the public. And having done that, I was led to go on a faith mission around the country. Faith meaning not having money in my pocket to pay my way, but just to begin going. Trusted that whatever I needed to get where I had to go would manifest itself. On this particular trip, I thought I'd better be wise and go through some states and cities where I had at least visited before, where if things did not work out as faith said it would, I could knock on some doors. But lo and behold, when I left here, I went the wrong way. And as I had gotten my car that I was driving gas depleted and I had $50 in my pocket, that was my starting money, I stopped at a service station only to find out that rather than going west or east toward Minnesota, I'd gone west up in the Dakotas. And so I began to get out and pray. And I asked God what had happened. and the Spirit spoke to me, or whether it was outside of me or inside of me, the knowledge came, the understanding came that this was supposed to be on faith. Faith not going to places what I'm unfamiliar with, that wasn't faith. Faith was going to places I had never been before. That I had a choice right there at that moment. I could go forward on faith, or I could fill my tank up with gas with that money I had left and come back home. I decided to go forward. And I was also directed to keep a daily report of everything that happened and entitle it American Christians on the Path to Hell. So I traveled across the country for at least a couple of months. And faith worked. I mean, had it not been for faith, things would have been tight. It was still tight. But faith got me around and got me back home. And when I took those reports and put it together, that report dealing with people everywhere I had been, dealing with churches, dealing with city officials and government officials. Once I was in D.C., and I had nowhere to sleep. I slept at a bus station, didn't want to sleep in my car, and I went to, well, no, I had no car at this time. I went to the police station, and I gave them a note indicating who I was, what I was doing, and asked them if they'd lock me up in a jail cell that night or put me in a jail cell so I could have some place to sleep. They wouldn't. So I decided to sit in the lobby. I sat there for maybe about 15 minutes, after which several officers came and they picked me up, took me out of the police station and threw me out in the streets in Washington, D.C. When they threw me there, I just couldn't believe that this could happen. For a person who was trying to do the things that I was trying to do in the name of love, in the name of God, but it happened. And so as I fell out in that street, in that highway, I told the Lord, I said, if this can happen to me, I will not move. I'll stay right here all night. And that's where I spent that night, laying out in the streets of Washington, D.C. Several cars came by, and a couple of them stopped. I don't know whether they stopped to see if I needed help or to rob me. But I know, having come to me and said something, I never looked up. My face never looked up. I stayed pointed down to the ground. They left. And I remember the pavement got so cold that night, I'm just praying, Lord, let the sun come out. It didn't come out until time. But when time came, the sun came out, and I felt good because that highway was fit, that pavement started feeling warm. And I started feeling good and rejoicing as I got up for the first time. Got myself together, looked around, and I found out why those people that stopped that night didn't bother me, because the policeman was standing on the outside of the police station, guarding me, watching me, making sure that nothing happened to me, or just to make sure that what was going on with me. And so I just turned around, spoke to them, and kept on walking. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's just to give you some idea of what my commitment has been. But when I came back, I'm still trying to reach the public, because now I got a program called A Moment of Truth. And that moment of truth, as I spent time on radio talking about that, going out in the public, trying to address this concern about what the pains and suffering that happens in society, and how the people want to change, and how they can only get that change if they had a renewing of their minds, if they were born again, if they recognized that the stuff that they had been taught was the reason why everything was like it is. And if they wanted something better, they had to see better. And so I couldn't get anyone to pay attention to me. So I decided to break some of the laws that the 1% had put up to protect themselves, in hopes that in going to court, at least I can get it documented to the record. So when I tell you these things today, if you don't believe me, you can go back and check the court records, and they will suggest to you without a doubt why I was there. But the public, they didn't even come to my trial. Only thing I had was documentation. So that meant I went to jail on several occasions, and I even went to prison, standing up for the same things that I'm telling you today. But that was just part of it. Before then, ladies and gentlemen, I had a program called Paradise on Earth Unlimited, because now I've been given the vision of how we can have justice, how we can have the kind of life that we have all wanted all our lives. And I spoke about it. Didn't do any good. But I decided, let me run for office. People pay attention to the politics. Let me run the office, and my politics will be the same things that I've been preaching about then, the same things that I'm preaching about today. I didn't get one supporter to support what I was talking about. When I went to the people and knocked on their doors, church people, Christians, they didn't want to talk to me. They didn't want to hear anything I had to say. Whether it meant I was, because I was black, I don't know. Whether the indication was that I was poor, I don't know. But they didn't even want to hear the message. You know what it's like to go to a preacher's house saying, I'm lifting up the glory of God and I want to make sure that the world hears it. So I'm running for office and I'm giving all of those of you who say you believe in God, who say you believe in love, who say you believe in others, to put your mark on that paper and vote for what I was telling you about. Did I get any of that? No. So what did I see? It was confirmed to me. Now, what office did I run for before I tell you that? In time, and it took some time, I ran for president of the United States at least twice. I ran for the governor of the state of Minnesota once. I ran for mayor of the city of St. Paul, Minnesota. Ended up later running for mayor of the city of Woodbury, Minnesota. I never got any kind of support. No one was interested in any of that stuff I've been telling you about today. So it was confirmed that the American people, that the American Christians, and that the church were on the path to hell. What did I advocate? I advocated for freedom. I advocated for peace, meaning justice. I advocated for prosperity, not for just some, but for everybody. I advocated for food, clothing, and shelter, not for just some, but for everybody. I advocated for education and health care, not just for some, but for everybody. And I offered a way to achieve these things by engaging the people who would benefit, by showing them how they could become a part of the process, by working, choosing careers that they loved, to create the resources. Did I get any support? Not only did I advocate that, I did what no other politician has done. I took what I talked about and put it on paper and showed anybody that would listen, anybody that would study it, that it would absolutely produce exactly what I said, because the people themselves would play the part in it. And the part that they would play is doing unto others as they'd have others to do unto them. And that itself, when you run against an obstacle, in that challenge that said you will not allow something to hurt somebody else, even if it doesn't hurt you, created a situation where what it takes to mend that problem would reveal itself and you could use it. No doubt you could use it. It itself would, the answer, the solution would stand up in your face and you say, oh, well, this is what we got to do. Plain and simple. But no church wanted to hear that. They never heard what I'm telling you because they cut away. They just couldn't believe it. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? You nobody. So, they couldn't understand why God would take a black man, a poor man, who had chosen to be poor, so he could learn the message that God had. No, you can't tell me nothing. Get out of my face. That came from black people. That came from white people. That came from everybody. And now when you study, you see people talking about who was the first man, who was civilization, who is the true Jew, and all of these different things they come up with, fussing about this, fussing about that. And the simple way of life, my friends, it's so simple. That story, that ain't nothing but story. Same story they told you about American history. They left black people out. Didn't tell black people about who they come from and where they come from and their history or anything. So black people would be absent of that, wouldn't know the truth. That didn't just start here. That has always been the way. Even when they call themselves putting scriptures together, they put it together to serve the purpose for which it was designed, and that was for any political season or any political persuasion that was being used at that time. So what was needed, they added. What was not needed, they left out. Or if they put it in, they made it turn around to mean what they wanted it to mean, for the benefit of what they wanted it to mean. When life, my friends, is so simple. To recognize that it is nothing on this earth but for man that man put here. All the resources in the earth, on the earth, above the earth, whether they're seen or unseen, came from the Father. And anything that human beings could do to meet the needs that required for them to have for their survival came within the earth, from the earth, a given. The abilities that individuals have, that joy to do certain things, all played a part in what we require for our survival. Didn't take any money. All it took is that we cared about one another. And that's what I tell you today. All of the pain and suffering that we have today, we can wipe it away, not just here in America, but all over the earth, if we act and respond to each other like we want them to respond to us. Not lying and cheating and stealing and terrorism and war, building bombs and putting bombs on display, talking about how powerful you are. Nation against nation, wars here and wars there, all because you're blind in the message that I have been given to tell not just the church, not just Christians, but the whole entire world that you're on the path to hell. Nobody want to hear that. Christians and people who go to church, they play that game. And once they get old, you can't tell them a thing. Because it got to be true. They're going to die, they know that. But they're going to meet their mother in heaven. Al Capone, all the sinners who you just claim to be sinners, you know you call yourself okay. But everybody else is a sinner. Even they, in your understanding of it, is in heaven. And so you're going to meet there. But you don't want to do anything. You want Jesus to come out of the clouds while you sit around here, walk according to the rules of whatever system you live under, being guided by that system, and sit up and talk about an offering that you can give to help the poor. That is not doing anything but keeping them poor. Sending little food over to Africa and clothes over to Africa in a situation where bombs and things have been dropped on people, wiping their lives out, and you had nothing to say about that. But you going to heaven. I try to tell you, don't you know the story, if it's true, said it begun in heaven. You still got to be righteous. You still got to know what righteous is. You still have to make choice. And right now you're in a position where you can see what's going on and you can make that choice. But no, you want somebody to come down and take you out of this mess. All the hell that goes on down here is done by people who got 2 legs, 2 hands, a mind, and mouth just like you and I. Not no devil. You and I. And the same challenge has been given to us. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And only those who know the story, only those who know that they have had a change will be representative of that. And it's so few in the world that every time they stand up and people pay attention, they are martyred. They are killed. And the rest of us go and sit our butts back down as if everything gonna be all right. All of the churches, 501c3, telling the government, telling you what you can do and what you cannot do. But you're supposed to be serving God. And God, through the power of his word, has said, thy will, his will, be done on earth. What is his will? That you experience your dreams. That this becomes your heaven, your paradise right here. Because you were awakened. Your heart changed. Your mind changed. You became a love letter. You became the salt of the earth. You became the light of the world. I tell you again, what you're doing, America, Christians, the church, and everybody else across the globe, you're on a path to hell. And if you don't straighten up, if you don't renew your minds, if you're not born again, that's where you're going to end up, straight in hell. You see what they did in Libya? How the bombs and taking over and trying to persecute people. You see what they were doing in Germany. You see what they're doing in Syria today. You see what they're threatening to do in Afghanistan. You saw what they've done in Iraq. You see what they want to do all over the earth. That's hell, my friend. That's the dictation of hell and whoever runs hell. But it comes to you because it says you shall reap what you sow. The seed that you plant determines the fruit that you get. Now, you know I've shared the truth with you today. I was out there shoveling that snow. I mean, and today I felt some pains. I already felt some pains today. I didn't last time. And I'm thinking that I still got to shovel the snow. I'm thinking about I'm still in a world that's all screwed up. And I watch people who are watching Wendy Williams, a gossiper. I see people standing up watching television about The Bachelor, Bachelorette. People lying, cheating, playing all kinds of stupid games. And others are just sitting there watching it like it's the gospel. And hell, fire is burning all around. Look at the storms that are happening, not just snow, but look at the floods. Look at their hurricanes. Look at the winds. Look at the cities that are being devastated. Can't you wake up before it happens to you? And if you don't wake up, it's going to happen in greater magnitudes. It's going to be coming at you, really fast. So I've taken a little bit more than 10 minutes to share this with you. And if you do what you've done in the past, you won't even pay any attention to this. But that's not my job to make sure that you do. My job is to make sure that I present it to you. And blessedly, I have a chance to put it on YouTube and Facebook. I can't make any of you click on it to see what's going on. But I can post it. Today, I can post it. Eventually, they won't allow me to post it, I'm sure, if you don't change. But now, you have been given some information. Hopefully, and there's only hope, and we know what hope is. Hope is an unanswered dream. But this dream doesn't have to continue to be unanswered. You have the authority. You have the power. You have the information. My people suffer because of lack of knowledge. You have the information. So you can make a different choice. And it's all on you. Don't blame God. Don't blame Jesus because he's not coming out of the clouds yet. If you're going to blame anybody, blame yourselves. Until next time, if there is another time, this is Eddie Marcus, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. Bye-bye.